October 28th, 2025, 9:10 a.m. The calm of the Caribbean Sea shattered in an instant. Coastal radar stations near La Guaira, Venezuela, suddenly lit up, detecting a steel phantom slicing through the sky at Mach 1.2. Sleek, agile, unmistakable, an American F-35 Lightning II worth $92 million. Cutting across disputed airspace while transmitting gigabytes of real-time data back to the Pentagon every second, believing the fighter's presence to be a violation of its sovereignty. Venezuela launched Operation Bolivar, deploying two Su-30 Mk-2V flanker jets, each armed with $8 million worth of missiles to intercept. This was not a routine encounter. It was a direct move against an aircraft guarding America's $6.4 billion trade route, stretching from Miami to New Orleans. Immediately, the United States responded, dispatching the USS Valor and preparing it to fire SM-6 missiles, while two F/A-18E Super Hornets were placed on standby to enter the fight. Could Venezuela's flankers bring down the world's most advanced stealth fighter, or would they trigger a devastating counterattack? Let's uncover the truth. October 28th, 2025, 9:10 a.m. local time. The Caribbean Sea looked impossibly calm, its surface shimmering like molten silver beneath a cloudless sky. Cutting through that silence was one of America's deadliest sentinels, an F-35 Lightning II. Call sign Viper 1, worth $92 million. Its mission was to patrol every mile of ocean protecting the $6.4 billion UTRS trade route stretching between Miami and New Orleans. Every second, its radar scanned 400 miles of airspace, tracking more than 127 vessels scattered across the region. From its altitude of 32,000 feet, the jet's systems streamed 2.8 gigabyte of sensor data per second straight to the Pentagon. If anything went wrong, a single coded signal would awaken USS Valor DDG-125, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer 150 nautical miles away, bristling with 96 missile launch cells and a crew of 300 and 27 sailors. The ship's firepower exceeded that of Venezuela's entire northern fleet. One transmission from the F-35 could trigger an $800 million arsenal in under 8 minutes. At 9:22 a.m., the first anomaly appeared. Venezuelan coastal radar operators near La Guaira detected a faint but sharp contact moving at Mach 1.2, 245 miles offshore. The signal bounced across their screens like a heartbeat they could not ignore. Within 90 seconds, encrypted alerts raced to a Fuerza Aérea Bolivariana airbase and from there to President Nicolás Maduro Moros inside the Miraflores Palace. He saw a single image, a gray silhouette marked F-35 Lightning II, hovering near what Caracas called a restricted maritime zone. His verdict was instant. "This is no routine patrol," he told his staff. "It is provocation." Outside, the Caribbean shimmered in silence. Inside command centers from Caracas to the USS Valor, warning tones echoed. The storm had begun to breathe. By 9:30 a.m., inside the Miraflores Palace, tension thickened like humidity before a storm. President Nicolás Maduro Moros, surrounded by his generals, studied the blurred radar image of the American F-35 drifting near Venezuela's northern boundary. To him, it was not surveillance, it was a challenge. "They want to test our resolve," he said. "Then let's show them our sky still belongs to us." By 9:42 a.m., General Lenin Lorenzo Ramirez Villasmil, commander of the Venezuelan Air Force, had already issued the scramble order. Two Su-30 Mk-2V flanker fighters, each worth $50 million, and loaded with 8,000 pounds of ordnance, roared to life at the Fuerza Aérea Bolivariana Air Base. Their twin AL-31F engines screamed past 27,000 pounds of thrust, shaking hangars for miles. The mission was codenamed Operation Bolivar's Wing, a symbolic name for what Caracas called a defensive lesson. Within 12 minutes, the fighters were airborne, slicing through the Caribbean at Mach 1.5. One aircraft carried R-27R air-to-air missiles for radar-guided engagements. The other was armed with R-73 heat-seekers designed for close combat. Their onboard radars, though 20 years older than the F-35's systems, swept the horizon relentlessly, searching for the ghost in the sky. At 10:08 a.m., Venezuela's radar stations tracked both aircraft closing in on the American contact 54 nautical miles northeast of Puerto La Cruz. The tone in the control room shifted from routine to charged silence. Meanwhile, aboard the F-35 Lightning II, Viper 1 noticed two faint blips approaching fast. Unidentified and moving at over 900 mph. His voice stayed calm, but his fingers hit the emergency transmitter twice. Two inbound hostiles requesting verification and support. One message leapt across the ether, traveling 150 nautical miles in 0.7 seconds straight into the Combat Information Center of the USS Valor. The countdown to confrontation had begun, but one question still weighed heavily on the pilot's mind. Were the Venezuelans merely showing off their power or preparing for war? Share your thoughts in the comments below. By 10:15 a.m., the sky above the Caribbean erupted into motion. The two Su-30 Mk2V flankers streaked through the clouds like twin spears descending from 22,000 feet, with afterburners blazing. Their heat signatures lit up Venezuelan radar like fire. The American F-35 Lightning II, callsign Viper 1, was now alone, 54 nautical miles from land, 150 from the USS Valor. Inside the stealth jet, warning lights blinked red. The pilot's helmet display showed two incoming aircraft at Mach 1.4 closing the distance at 1,600 feet per second. The Venezuelan lead fighter, Su-30 Red Falcon, angled to lock the target. His wingman, Iron Hawk, prepared for the kill. Lock confirmed. The Venezuelan pilot barked in Spanish. At 10:16 a.m., a pair of R-27R medium-range missiles, each worth $250,000, streaked into the sky at Mach 4.5. Their guidance cones glowed white-hot, slicing through the thin Caribbean air. From 30 miles away, they covered the gap in under 12 seconds. The F-35 pilot reacted instantly. He rolled left, dove 7,000 feet, and dumped chaff and flares in blinding cascades. The first missile missed by less than 90 feet, detonating in a shock wave that slammed the jet sideways. The second missile kept hunting. Its onboard seeker maintained lock, tightening, with one desperate maneuver. Viper 1 banked again, but the warhead struck the right-wing root. The explosion shredded half the flaperon, tearing away composite panels worth $11 million in an instant. At 10:17 a.m., the cockpit filled with warning tones. Hydraulic pressure dropped to 23%. Engine temperature spiked past 1400 degrees. The pilot knew the Lightning was dying. He thumbed the distress beacon and spoke into the mic, steady but strained. Mayday, aircraft hit. Coordinates transmitting. Preparing for ditch. The encrypted pulse shot through the satellite network and hit USS Valor's combat center in less than 1 second. As the F-35 began losing altitude, its fuel line ruptured. A streak of vapor trailed behind, like a scar across the blue. from 25 miles out. Venezuelan radar saw the contact flicker and vanish. Target destroyed. The controller confirmed. Cheers erupted in the base bunker. To them, it was victory. To the Americans aboard the USS Valor, it was a declaration of war. The hunter had been wounded, and the response would not be measured in words. The distress signal had reached the USM destroyer, but what would happen next was beyond anyone's imagination. Stay with me, because the American reply was something the world had never seen. By 10:20 a.m., and the emergency beacon from Viper 1 had hit the USS Valor like an electric shock through steel. Inside the Combat Information Center, every console flashed crimson. Rear Admiral Marcus Hale stared at the tactical feed, two Su-30 Mk-2V flankers retreating west. Confident they had erased a $92 million American jet. His voice cut through the static. They fired first. Now we finish it. Within 2 minutes, Operation Iron Reply was authorized. The destroyer's 96 vertical launch cells hissed open. Target lock was acquired 2 Su-30s, 47 nautical miles from the Venezuelan coast. At 10:28 a.m., 5 RIM 174 Standard Missile 6 interceptors leapt into the air. Each was a 300-pound weapon traveling at Mach 3.5, guided by the Valor's SPY-6 radar, which could track 500 targets at once. From the Venezuelan cockpits, the radar warning screamed. Incoming multiple locks, shouted the lead pilot. Both Su-30s banked hard left, dumping flares and twisting through 9G turns to break the lock. One dived toward the clouds at 28,000 feet. The other tried to climb, but the missiles kept coming. Too many. Too fast. The first SM-6 detonated 60 feet behind Red Falcon, shattering its tail fins. A second slammed into its fuselage at 2,600 Pamamini Parirar, vaporizing the aircraft mid-air. Iron Hawk tried to retaliate, firing an R-73 missile blindly into the sky. But the guidance failed amid jamming from the Valor's AN/SLQ-32 V7 system. The third and fourth SM-6s tore through the vapor trail, closing the distance in under 14 seconds. The cockpit turned into fire. 2 seconds later, debris rained into the Caribbean. $100 million in aircraft was reduced to ash. But Admiral Hale was not finished. "Strike the nest," he ordered. 2 FA-18E Super Hornets launched from the carrier USS George Washington, 210 miles north of the engagement zone. Each fighter carried AGM-88 HARM and AGM-154 JSW precision weapons, 5 warheads in total, capable of wiping out an airbase the size of a city block. At 10:35 a.m., the Hornets dived over the Fuerza Aérea Bolivariana airbase. Their radar warning receivers screamed with multiple locks. 5 streaks of flame fell through the clouds. The explosions were biblical. Hangars collapsed. Fuel depots erupted. The runway split open like paper. 185 soldiers and aircrew vanished in a chain of fire that reached 2,000 degrees. When the smoke cleared, radar coverage from Caracas went dark. The operation had lasted 15 minutes, cost America $45 million, and obliterated $100 million worth of enemy hardware. From the bridge of the USS Valor, Admiral Hale spoke quietly. "Mission complete. 2 hostiles down. Base neutralized. Let the world know the United States does not lose its wings." By 12 p.m., silence fell over the Caribbean. The echoes of war faded, leaving only black smoke curling over a shattered airbase and the charred remains of 2 Su-30 Mk-2V flankers drifting on the sea. What Venezuela had celebrated as triumph an hour earlier had become one of the most expensive mistakes in its military history. By the time rescue ships from Puerto La Cruz reached the crash sites, there was nothing left to recover. Just 2 burning oil slicks stretching 5 miles across the water. Satellite photos confirmed total destruction: $100 million in aircraft, a $350 million air base, and 185 soldiers and officers wiped out in minutes. The explosions were so intense that U.S. infrared satellites 400 miles above the Earth registered the heat spike at 200-300 degrees. On board the USS Valor, the mood was somber but resolute. Rear Admiral Marcus Hale reviewed the final report. 5 SM-6 missiles, 2 Hornets, and 5 precision strikes had cost the Navy roughly $45 million. Yet, in exchange, America had demonstrated air-sea integration unmatched by any other power on the planet. The F-35 pilot, Viper 1, was found alive at 11:56 a.m., retrieved from a life raft by a Navy Seahawk. His jet, valued at $92 million, lay 3,000 feet beneath the sea. But its black box carried every radar frequency and every targeting signal Venezuela had used that morning. In Washington, the Pentagon confirmed the engagement lasted just 38 minutes. The shortest and most decisive aerial confrontation in the Western Hemisphere since 1989. Within hours, world media erupted. Venezuelan airbase annihilated. 185 dead. U.S. retaliation leaves 2 flankers in ruins. The day American steel spoke. At the United Nations, diplomats traded accusations, but one truth stood unshaken. The United States had not fired first. It had merely responded, fast and surgical, in the Caribbean dusk, as the USS Valor cut through calm waters. Admiral Hale's words to his crew carried across the deck. Let the world remember this day. Recklessness has a price. The ocean swallowed the echoes, but the message remained. In modern warfare, arrogance is not strength. It is ignition. As dusk bled across the Caribbean horizon, the sea that had witnessed fire and thunder now mirrored quiet skies once more. The USS Valor steamed slowly westward, her deck scorched from the launch heat of 10 missiles, her sailors exhausted but silent. On the bridge, Rear Admiral Marcus Hale stood against the wind, watching the last rays of sun reflect off the calm surface, the same waters that only hours earlier had burned with aviation fuel and falling wreckage. The operation was over, but its consequences had only begun. Venezuela had lost 2 Su-30 Mk-2Vs worth $100 million, an air base valued at $350 million, and 185 of its best men, all for a moment of pride and misjudgment. The strike lasted less than 40 minutes, yet it rewrote the military balance of an entire region. For Washington, it was a demonstration of discipline and precision. No civilian casualties, no prolonged escalation, just proof that when provoked, the United States could respond with speed and certainty unmatched anywhere on Earth. In Caracas, grief and disbelief filled the streets. State television went dark for 12 hours. The once defiant words of President Alejandro Rojas were now echoes in the ruins of Jose Antonio Air Base. Across the world, analysts replayed the footage frame by frame, labeling it the day technology crushed tradition. As night deepened, the Valor's radar swept the empty sea, not searching for enemies, but for lessons. Admiral Hale turned to his officers and spoke quietly, almost to himself. Power isn't measured by how loud you roar. but by how calmly you strike. And in that silence, the message was sealed for history. America's wings may be challenged, but never defeated. If you value this kind of analysis and want to keep uncovering the real lessons behind today's conflicts, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue bringing you the untold stories of modern warfare.